I just want to start off by thanking everyone for coming tonight. I see a lot of faces in the room, which is always exciting. Tonight we are going to talk about some of the progress that we've made at the Swisshelm Park solar site since our last meeting in January of this year. We're going to talk a little bit about our timeline and next steps with our construction process. And we're also going to talk about a grant opportunity that we're really excited about here at the URA from the EPA. It's a Brownfield cleanup grant. And we're really looking forward to getting our application in. We're hoping for a $2 million award to support this effort. And that's the second piece of why we're probably all here today. We're looking for feedback on our application. Before we jump into all of that, I would like to welcome Councilmember Warwick to the stage and to get your remarks.
Hi everyone. Well, just after that, we're saying thank you for coming out, and thanks to the URA for having this meeting. And I'm sure you all have questions, and maybe those of you who weren't here in January, so you know, time to ask. Yeah. Take it away.
All right, so we'll go ahead and kick off here. So, like you said, our last meeting was in January of this year. Started conversations around this site actually way back in September of 2021. I see some of the same folks here today that was on that first call where we talked about this same site, and a lot of folks on that call were used to calling this Somerset Phase 3 site. So, right, that's the site that we're looking at here. And at that call, we talked about for the first time a change of direction from the former use. For folks who are familiar with other Somerset phases, right across 991, that you can see in kind of the top portion of this map up here, it was a housing development. And initially, the intention was to do a third phase of that same housing development over in the pink parcel add-on, which is the site that we're talking about today. For a number of reasons, mostly cost, we weren't able to move forward with that development as planned. Initially planned there was going to be two large access routes to the site, one coming off of Marshall through kind of the heavily wooded portion of the site over here. There's also going to be a bridge that connected the Somerset Phase 3 site to the former Somerset Phase 2 site. So those access roads are going to be pretty cost intensive and eventually made it infeasible to continue with that development pathway. So for that reason, we have been thinking at the URA about other opportunities that we could pursue on the site. One of the things that came to mind from our former real estate director, Nathan Clark, was a solar facility. And the reason that initiated that potential development use was thinking about what holds Pittsburgh back from other cities. And one of the things that came to mind was our air quality issues. Pittsburgh area has some of the worst air quality east of the Mississippi in the U.S. And so what can we do to combat that air quality? And one of the major things that we can do is provide more clean energy opportunity. So that is what kind of initiated this effort, as well as the site itself. So we've got two portions of the site, which is the map you'll see are outlined in yellow, that are flat and majorly cleared. It's about 15 acres. With some initial kind of research and development, we understand that those two paths could offer us about 2.55 megawatts, or just under 3 megawatts of solar development. So we're excited about that. Maybe let's start to rally around that opportunity. And part of the first, one of the first things that we have to do if we're going to develop on this site is remediate the land. So for folks who don't know, I've been on prior facilities. This is an Act 2 site. It formerly was a waste dumping ground for slag, which is a offshoot of the steel manufacturing process. So parts of the site, and we can turn this map around here. So the entire site is about 70 acres. The entire site does not need to be remediated. There's about 21 acres on this site that contain the slag and need to be remediated before folks can help be walking on the site or using it in a way that's going to be healthy for them. So it's a little bit difficult to see. I'm showing some of you folks in the back here. But this is the portion right where the solar panels are going to go. That portion needs to be remediated. And there are a couple other portions here that also need to be remediated. So I encourage folks to come on and take a peek at the map when you get a chance. If you can't see it from where you are now. That is the first phase of our development here. So before we can consider solar, before we can think about future uses, we've got to clean up the site and get ready for development. So that's what we're proposing today. We're proposing a opportunity for us to fill financing gaps to be able to complete the remediation and eventually develop the site. So the second phase, like I said, is going to be the solar development. And after we finish developing solar, the goal is to subdivide the property and dedicate the rest of the site back to the city for a park extension. So that's a little bit of an update on the project. Since we came together last in January, we have some exciting news. We've been working hard with the DEP to get our remediation plan approved. So we've got that approval now. In June, we received that approval, and now we're ready to move full steam ahead, complete our fundraising, and get started on the site. That's a timeline. Alright, I guess this is going to be really like our time on that much, but hopefully you guys will like it more. So here we are today, right, quarter 4 of 2023. We're meeting today to talk about the grant opportunity. And moving into 2024, hopes that we, receive this grant award and we're fully financed. The intention is to release the RFP in quarter 2 of 2024. At the beginning of the quarter and close that RFP towards the end, so we'll give folks about 2 months to respond to that. In quarter 3, we intend to work with a review committee to select a developer in conjunction with our engineering consultants who will help us with the technical. Yes, exactly right. Quarter 3, we will select that contractor for the remediation. Quarter 4, remediation construction will begin. So that's the big time frame that I want people to understand is that the next year we're hopeful that we'll be able to start construction. Moving into construction completion, so now we're skipping ahead a little bit here, 1 year to 2025. So we expect that the construction period will take about 1 full year. Quarter 4 of 2025, around construction completion for remediation, we intend to release an RFP for the solar developer. At that point, we will work again with the review committee to select that developer and close the RFP, and hopefully, be back again with this group to talk about what that solar development is going to look like. We didn't want to project too much into the future from there because we want to wait to see if this solar developer is going to work with us and help us understand the timeline for that development process. But this is generally what the timeline is going to look like. Yeah, that is kind of an overview of where we've been, where we're going, and the feedback that we're looking for from people tonight. Yeah, you can turn that on too. Yeah, if folks get a chance, this is kind of just a general image of what we expect the panels on the site to look like. And again, this is kind of a schematic that helped us figure out exactly how much solar this site can handle. We expect to push this a little bit. We're going to get as close to the 3 megawatts as possible. But the goal is to use the existing flat and clear areas and minimize as much development challenge to the existing tree coverage. So yeah, we want to leave the trees, we don't want to take those down. It's so beautiful this time of year, especially. And so yeah, this is an image of what it would look like in the future. Okay, and with that, I'll hand it over to Marcus to talk to us a little bit more about the grant.
Yeah, absolutely. So you all received all this material here, so I'm responsible for that. Just to kind of talk a little bit of what's in that is our grant application materials, as well as the guidelines. So you'll notice here that the first one is the narrative, that first one in the packet, and then the second is the analysis of brownfield cleanup alternatives. And so what the EPA requires for our grant application is that you have to notify the communities who may be affected by the area if the grant were to be awarded and allow them to provide feedback. So hear from you all today whether you'd like to provide a public comment or Q&A box, or also on the QR code you might have seen at the front. You can go to that survey and provide comment there as well. So the guidelines here is the last biggest part of that packet that you have there. So you can skip the table of contents, you'll see that it specifically highlights the requirements under the analysis of brownfield alternatives on page 30 under the community notification piece. And so what the analysis of brownfield alternatives has to talk about is just tell you a little bit about why we're doing work that we're doing, the regulatory requirements from the EPA as well, and talk about the work that we're going to do, why we chose that as a specific. So you'll see there's 3 options in that analysis of brownfield alternatives. So option 1 is to do remediation, and the other 2 options are different brownfield alternatives. So we'll talk a little bit about why we presented those 3 different options. And then just to highlight the narrative piece, also in the guidelines on the table of contents, if we look at for under the application submission information, it has the different questions we have to answer. So a lot of what you'll see in the application there is the actual questions on the prompt and how many points that question were. Just so you can understand why we were doing more of this section. As summary. So I'm going to turn it back over to Lily just to talk a little bit about options. We presented for the ABCA just so you can understand our decision-making process that you use with
All right, so when you check out the 3 options on there, the first one, like Marcus spoke to a little bit already, is no remediation, right? And so for the grant folks that are reviewing our application, that's an option. But for us, as a redevelopment authority, that's not really in the cards for us. We want to see this land remediated. We know that no one is trespassing on the land now. But if they were, then we also know that it could be a public health risk Not as much for adults as it would be for kids, but folks with small lungs, including beloved pets that may not be trespassing on the site. It is a health risk for folks to be on the site because of the heavy metals and the contamination of the soil. Especially on dusty days when any dust is picked up in the area, that gets into your lungs and can be an issue. So from our perspective as a development authority and folks who have the public health's best interest in mind, we really want to get on there and remediate the site. Benefits to that first option, as you'll see in the packet, are that it is no cost to us to do absolutely no remediation. It is the least option. As I said, it would pose no benefit to the public in terms of public health. It wouldn't improve property values, the brownfield site would be less remediated. The second option that we have, which is the one that we're most excited about and planning to run full steam ahead with, is the option to pull up all that contaminated soil. So in the area, those 21 acres or so of contaminated soil, our plan is to dig up that soil and then bring in clean fill to the site, so that is uncontaminated soil. We'll then mix all of that together to get to a level of contamination that is low enough that it won't affect public health in the way that I just described. And then we will have the site with another layer of topsoil. And so the goal of that topsoil layer is to encourage plants to root into the site and to cap it so that it won't be a public health issue. So that is what we, if we're talking Goldilocks scale, this is the warmest option, right, in terms of cost. It is going to be around $8.35 million for us to manage the remediation with that plan. It is DEP approved, so we've got to go ahead with that option. And yeah, like I said, we will be able to remediate the site, brownfields, decrease property values. Folks will, with this effort managed, be able to use the site again and not fear for the health of themselves and their loved ones. So that is option number 2 that you'll see in your packet. Option number 3 is the most expensive option. So this option would be for us to take all of the contaminated soil off the site and dispose of it. It is very expensive to dispose of contaminated soil, and so that option is going to be at least twice the cost of option number 2. So yeah, those are the 3 options. Again, we are landing on that Goldilocks approach, that middle ground. So $8.35 million in development costs, $2 million of that we're hoping to receive from the EPA from the Brownfield cleanup grant. And so yeah, just to reiterate what Marcus already described, we are going to today community to help us, provide comment about our application, and we're open to comment, about these alternative approaches. We want to hear what you like about the approach that we defined here today, and we're also willing, of course, to feedback about the project at large, and yeah, we're excited to hear from you all to help us make our application as good as possible. With that, I'm going to come back to Marcus to close us out.
And we can read those out. And obviously, we have questions in the meantime.
Currently a consultant to the URA. One other point to mention on the 3 options. The first option of do nothing, this financing, is actually not an option, because the city is the owner of the land, are under what's called a consent order in agreement with the state of Pennsylvania to clean up that entire Somerset site, the entire site. So one and phase two have already been remediated and cleaned up in accordance with that agreement we entered into with the state years ago. Phase three of the site, on our side of the Monroe Run, has not been cleaned up, obviously, and has to be done in accordance with that agreement. But legally, the do nothing is not an option.
Okay, so we can start with the questions that are in the comment box.
So the first question we have is, will there be max throughout during construction? Will there be an access route during construction?
All right, great, yes, we're expecting questions about the access route today. So if folks remember on our second community meeting that we held related to this project, we talked a lot about the access road. Taking along, we've been along this long ride for us all the way back to, I think it was November 2021. And so we actually, if you were on the call then, and those were virtual meetings, right? It was in the height of COVID. We were all online. We're excited to be back in person with you all of these community meetings. At the time, we did a survey to understand what the community wanted to see in terms of access roads. And what would be most desired. And so we presented a couple options, and based on taking community feedback from that meeting, I'll share with you what we landed on. So construction access will come through Goodman Street. This was the winner, as far as the survey went in terms of options. And then after the construction is completed, once the solar development has occurred, and the solar project is just running, in its day-to-day operations, Love Street will be used as the maintenance access point. And so the reason for that is for folks who know the area well, there's a very tight turn to get onto Love Street with the construction vehicular access won't be possible at Love Street, so Goodman is the better option there for the larger construction vehicles. The third option on the table in our survey was the option to potentially block off parts of the trail that goes along the run. This third option will have a more significant expense associated with it because we'll need to work with our contractors to do some earthwork on the site. So for folks who are familiar with the site, which I know none of you are because none of you have been trespassing, there is a pretty steep slope over here, and so this is actually the route that, in theory, the second construction access point could be. And so there would need to be some earthwork done right around here to flatten out that site, and make it possible for construction vehicles to make that turn and be able to make their way onto the property via this route over here along the trail. And what I would say to you here, that would be a switchback, and he's exactly right. Yeah, so there are some complications with that access route. The benefits would be that you could split up the construction traffic lane through the site, and it expedite the amount of time it takes to complete that work. So that would be the benefit of that route. But yes, I hear folks in the audience saying, as folks do the survey listed in their comments, that would cut off access to 9 Mile Run Trail for a period of time. So yeah, there are pros and cons of each approach. Ultimately for us, we are set on the Goodman Street access point. We are still working out with our civil engineers the possibility of adding that additional access point at this time. So hopefully whoever asked that question covers it. Oh, sure, yeah, please.
So what do you envision to get to Woodman that you thought, let's say, where they're going
Yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying. I think it in part depends on where the bill is coming from, which direction. But either of those access routes would be possible. There's also benefits to splitting it so that it isn't all coming from the same way. But it's our understanding that either of those routes would be possible. So again, we haven't nailed down the exact route, but that will come once we have selected the contractor that will manage the construction effort. So
there are public meetings before it works.
oh yeah, absolutely. This is not the last time you see us. We'll be back again to discuss the next phases. Yeah, and I think that one item that you remind me to bring up here related to the three options is that the third option that we described there, where you would be taking all the contaminated soil off-site, that would be the largest number of construction vehicles needed, because you would have to truck all that material off the site and that same amount back onto the site, versus that Goldilocks approach, that middle option, because we're mixing in the soil that's already on the site, there will be less soil needed to be taken off and taken in. So that's another benefit of the second option versus the third. Yes, I don't know off the top of my head, but I did write this down. Okay, so it's going to be 60,000 cubic yards of soil. In our calculations, we considering a 15 cubic yard dump truck. We calculated 4,000. And that's for the middle option. So keep that in mind when you're considering yeah, I think the issue is not necessarily one way, but rather a tight turn that would be needed to get onto Love Street that those larger vehicles wouldn't be able to accommodate. Yeah, that's what folks have been describing to us, but it's something that we're willing to look back into. Yeah, I hear you. There were definitely benefits on coming directly off of Love. For folks who have seen the map here, the Love Street access point would bring you right into this Buffalo area, versus the Goodman Street access point. That's okay. The Goodman Street access point, we need to have some work here to get the access road. So again, once we engage our contractor, we're going to be evaluating all of these options. We are going to be, evaluating exactly what the route will be, and I think we'll be able to come with a stronger decision point at that time. Yeah. Exactly right. Yeah, if it's possible to do both, that would definitely be ideal. I think we've been told that it isn't, but it's something that we're willing to run down again once we engage the contractor. That's a good point, yeah.
All the other previous meetings, actually, once this work is done, it's turned over to a partnership, arrangements for the Frick Park, National Park. They, talk about the recreational remediation that needed to be more because, again, it's part of the park. The whole site, I think, has to be, with the state's treatment program, which is known as Act 2, there are 3 different cleanup standards depending on what the uses are going with the highest committees, which is residential and recreation and residential, which is the highest level of cleanup. So, you're required and you will be cleaning up to that standard so that it can go over parkland.
Yeah, part of that question we had coming from an earlier engagement effort that we did with the Swisshelm Park Solar Steering Committee. We were working in kind of a focus group capacity to understand the existing park trail system and whether we should plan to remediate those existing trails at different levels, because the intention was for those to be used in the future. And ultimately, what we decided is rather than like split out the solar portion of the site and take that to an industrial standard, which is a less intensive remediation, and leave the recreational portion to that to be the highest standard, which would cut our costs here for the remediation on the site. We made the decision to just take, as Robert said, the entirety of the site to the highest possible level. So that, I don't think of this solar development as an interim or short-term use, but it is going to be a 50-year ground lease. And so the intention is that, we all hope that after those 50 years, solar is doing great and, it'll be still a great option to move forward with. But in the case that it's not, this site will be returned back to exactly how the solar developer got it. They will be responsible to take all their panels off, and then we will come back to the drawing board with a fully remediated site that will be available for all different types of uses, including a larger extension for the park, if possible. You guys didn't like hearing about housing last time we were here. Who knows in 50 years what this site might look like. But all that to say that we took the entirety of the site to that highest standard to allow for the possibility of a life post this solar construction that transcends industrial use. All right, seeing nothing else there in the crowd, we'll jump to the next question.
Any other questions? Do you want to go first?
Yes. No, you're not commenting on the remediation plan itself, just the grant for the construction related to remediation. Grant is from the EPA.
Yeah, I was talking about that actually.
And what is the public will be commenting on your grant application from the city as well?
Yeah, so we haven't submitted the grant application yet. So what you're reading here is our draft, and the goal of today is for the public to comment on our draft, so that we can submit submit the best possible grant application with your community input as part of our application.
Like, probably a common phrase we missed, the action plan. We have a requirement for public input.
Yes.
Okay.
And then throughout the rest of it as well, so, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get word that throughout the entire remediation process, the part of what becomes part of our contract is that ABCA. And so that shows, that, we had community input on it, that we thought through these options responsibly, and that we're proceeding with the most reasonable option. So that community input piece, this is just kind of the first step of it, that, when awarded that, it continues throughout the entire life cycle of it. There will be more meetings in addition to the general project updating days, and we would talk through the scope of work, the progress, and all that.
Can't get all the right things and the better you go and get
Yeah, I got an email asking about the right sort of like area.
Yeah. So at this time, there isn't going to be any impact to that area. That's not in the remediated portions of it. Yeah, that's exactly right. So it's kind of over here in the limits of the slab and right about there. It don't have to be too worried.
I have a couple questions. If I understood option 2 correctly, you're stripping out the contaminant dirt, mixing it with clean fill, putting it back and packing it all up with clean topsoil. So, is it correct that the flames kind of end up higher than it is currently?
Yes.
Okay. All right, my other question was, I can't remember the exact timeline for the Commercial Street Bridge replacement project, but how does the timeline overlap with that?
Yeah, we do a monthly coordination call with that project team to coordinate around this, and I believe that they are a little bit pushed back as well. I think that they're going to start summer of 2024, and our plan is to start at the end of the year.
Okay. So probably
They will overlap, and we were actually hoping that we might be able to take some of the bridge that is going to be the bridge that exists now that's going to be coming down. We're hoping we might be able to use some of that clean fill actually on our site, but it turns out that, the timelines aren't going to overlap in that way, unfortunately. There are some community folks who recommend that actually, so that's why we love y'all good ideas for us. So we did run that one down. Unfortunately, it's going to be a little bit off. But fortunately, we have other Brownfield sites that we might be able to use it for. I think we don't know off the top of our heads here, but it's something that, like, what we do know is that, one third is going to be mixed around during the construction process, that, adult loans can handle this, and so that's why it's not, an immediate concern necessarily for the folks who are remediating this site. And it's really like younger loans that we're worried about. So that's kind of what, the remediation plan itself says. And we anticipate that folks who are coming in to do the construction will be able to operate in ways that are safe for them. So yeah, I don't have too much more detail past that. You might happen to remember exactly the safety protocols from the phase 2 site. Yeah, well, let's get back to you on that. Oh yeah, that's sometimes something that they do on construction sites. Yeah, I would imagine all of those types of safety procedures would be applied here. Yeah, I mean, luckily this site, it's mostly off the street grid, especially, this larger pad over here. But yeah, with the love street access point, I hear that is close corridors. Yeah, and when we choose our, a contractor who is doing the construction for this site, these are all questions that we will definitely be asking at that point, and it will be part of the parameters by which we are reviewing the proposals we receive, to ensure that, it's going to be, we're going to pick the proposals that's going to be as safe as possible. That's definitely going to be part of what we're reviewing when the time comes.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is streets are not being restricted, right? So running, access,
Yeah, understood. We're definitely gonna work with our legal team to ensure that, parameters are in place so that we're not leaving the neighborhood a mess when we finish this project. That's definitely a top priority for us. And part of the reason why we need this money.
Seems like there's a potential gap in funding. Would you work with just the two funding, or do you bank that and wait for
Yes, the $2 million is actually the last dollars in. So our project is also funded by American Rescue Plan Act funds. We've got $3.4 million of American Rescue Plan Fund Act funds. And we've also got TIF money, so tax increment financing is also part of the capital stack here. So essentially, if we don't, get this award, then we're going to have to work with our partners who help us activate the TIF monies to see if we can, be creative to fill that gap. However, the goal is to get this award so that we can, we won't need to hold on to those TIF funds as long, which is really the priority for our partners. So to be good partners to the city, the county, and the schools who are partners in that tax increment financing, our goal is to, yes, fund this project with other sources so that we don't need to use as much of those funds.
I know, like, for example, line drainage, they can use limestone to react with the acid so that the concentration of the acid in the water. I'm sure you're going to work on this, but we're also considered that, I don't know what, in terms of the chemistry, what could be done, in terms of like sequestering or removing the contaminant itself.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can comment exactly to your question, but what I can say is that in our remediation plan, there were a number of materials that were approved to be used as that clean fill. Not just soil that was approved, like I said, we're considering the bridge materials, so there were other materials that were approved, but, we're going with the soil because it's the cheaper option.
It sounds like that would be better at diluting the.
Exactly right, yeah.
Doing something to affect the contaminants themselves. And I mean, not my fault, it's wondering, what's considered the,
Yeah, so, with our engineering and environmental consultants, that's another option that they brought to the table to us. And yeah, so we're in engineering consulting CEC, the folks that we've been working and partnering with on this project. And they've done a number of remediation sites that we kind of trust their instincts. This is the most effective and efficient way to manage the remediation. But yeah, it's a good question. I can definitely bring it up with our team and see if there are any other options there. Jennifer is a real nerd about this kind of stuff, so I'm sure she knows exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, it's a great point. It's something that they never offered, on the table for us, but we can definitely track down. Yeah, this plan won't 100% control that, but it will mitigate that. So it will improve it to the levels that are deemed permissible by the DEP. There also will be a restricted covenant on whoever develops on the site that the groundwater cannot be used. So yeah, I know it will be completely illegal for anyone to try to use the groundwater for that reason. be taking all of the contaminated soil off site.
And when you started the previous meeting, so I hope I'm not speaking something before, but how stable is the underlying soil bedrock here? Because I think in the last year or two, wasn't there a significant slump of land on Forward Ave? And then when you disturb it, based around, you're looking at the possibility of and they found that done also by Brownfield, I believe it is. Where it takes one of the hospitals, I understand there's still monitoring the movement back. So how is that going to have impact here? Related to that, is there a certain amount of money that's going to be set aside for unanticipated costs, like when and where you're going to remove, the retaining soil, and who gets that? And do you have money set aside? That require a greater distance and more anticipated costs for anticipated. Where the new soil be brought from? I think this is a wonderful idea. I think there are some other questions that need to be addressed.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. We are working based off of cost estimates from our engineers. And we're actually really excited because this week we just signed a contract for our next phase of work with them. And in that contract, they're going to be updating our cost estimates. So I personally, as budget manager, am very excited about that portion of their work. So we're going to get some updated numbers around exactly what you just described, which is going to help us form a more realistic cost estimate here. I will say that the $8.35 million number that we shared with you includes work that some significant earthwork on the site. And so, you know, for example, if we don't have enough funds to manage like some of what you're describing, like unintended costs, then that might cut down our opportunity to do the earthwork on the other side of the site and engage that third access route. So that's part of the cost benefit analysis that's coming with this new round of this next phase with our engineering consultant. That being said, we build contingencies into all of our budgets. So, you know, that covers unintended costs that we work with, you know, CDC to make sure that those contingencies are consistent with what they've seen in our other projects. So yeah, I mean, we couldn't make any of these determinations ourselves, but we, you know, count on our consultants to help us make those calls.
Do you have any idea where this soil is going to go? Or where this soil comes from? Who are we lobbying to get this soil?
So yeah, the contaminated soil actually likely won't go off-site. It'll likely be stored on-site in like one particular area that will then obviously have, you know, grow inside the location, and that will be kept. Okay, one more question here, and I do want to take more from the cards.
I don't know if that's something for regulators, but it definitely lends to formation. So, like, I'm not sure if it's far enough down for regulators, but if you've got really good plus steep slope that moves for asphalt, so I mean, that would be one thing. Like,
yeah, I mean, these are all great points that you're raising. Unfortunately, I don't have much information now about how we're going to mediate any issues around landslides that might be a repercussion from this. But again, in this next phase of engineering services, you know, we're going to be out at the site with the CEC contact who does all of the kind of report estimating. And so that'll be the time to ask those questions, and he'll be able to help us understand some of the impacts there. Yeah, I wish we had more info tonight, but we can definitely get back to you on that. once we engage this next phase. Alright, Mark is hitting with another one of your hard questions.
Yeah, no, I just have to highlight a couple things in the narrative you'll see. There's a budget on there on page 15, starting on 14. So you can see there's a contingency column for it, so you can, that's something you can also provide on as well. And then the other thing to add is that on the actual grant guidelines on page 6, they walk you through the eligible uses of the grant funds. So I know someone had mentioned environmental monitoring for work. So that is an eligible direct costs are eligible under that work. So that's something to provide on as well that we can consider the budget.
Thanks, Marcus.
So there are a couple of questions around just which I know you started talking about as well. The first one was, does this contaminate and will it cause issues to get out?
Yeah, so, we covered this a little bit, the harm to health of humans particularly is really, with younger folks and smaller young lungs. That's part of the reason that, like earlier in the meeting when we were talking about how an industrial level is different than a recreational level, that's because industrial level is assumed that there are adults on that site and not, kids. And so yeah, all that to say that we, can make the assumption that the folks managing the remediation process will be adults, and therefore it is less of a hazard to their health. That being said, we intend to contract with folks who have, significant experience managing Act 2 sites, and we anticipate that they will know exactly the safety measures that are needed. If that question particularly was pertaining to we again will be reviewing proposals that particular method in mind, so how they can keep it safe throughout the construction process. Okay, how much dust will be generated during construction is the question, and unfortunately I can't answer that one. But we can definitely, try to see, I think, rather than focusing on the amount of dust, I think we're going to be really focusing on the safety measures to prevent and hazard to public health, and so I think that's what you can expect to look back on. As soon as support validation for the actual panels, this is a really good question. We're actually working with our consultants now. We have engaged with PA Solar Center to help us understand this exact question in kind of collaboration with our engineering consultants. And the next step, another next step that, now that we've got this next phase signed off on and ready to go is to actually reconnect with the DEP. And so, to the question earlier about the EPA, that is federal, but the DEP that we're working with, that is the state. And so one of the next steps is going to be for us to reconnect with them and review our remediation plan. And at that phase, we're hoping to engage with contacts at the DEP that has experience with other solar projects to understand, basically, what do we need to be thinking about now in the construction process of the remediation to prepare for how the solar panels are going to be installed in the future. And so it's not a question that we have an answer to for this meeting, but it's definitely one of the next questions that we're trying to answer with our team professionals. What else you got for me, Marcus? Okay, we will see that do a show on this. I think the answer is most definitely yes. I guess I'm going to go for others. But you need to reach out to them if you want to see the show on this. That's actually the second round of community feedback that we're going to be looking for. So. question. Does anyone else have any questions? I think that is. Sure.
That you're looking for somebody to purchase the 3 megawatts.
Yeah, so in the prior meetings, we focused a lot more heavily on the solar development component of the site, because that's where we were went out and we're really looking for community feedback on whether people were excited about this use. And just for a refresher, the survey that we did back in 2021, only 10% of the community was not interested in seeing solar use. So most of you are excited about it, as we are. When we, as we go to engage the solar use, so here we are talking about the remediation. This is the first phase. As the timeline showed at the end of this remediation construction period is when we will start to engage the solar developer. Part of engaging the solar developer will be looking for an off-taker for the solar energy. And so ideally, in our RFP that we released, we said, hey, we've already identified this energy user that wants to take all 2.55 megawatts of energy that you're generating on site. We are still in conversations about that. We've had some interesting discussions. There are some challenges imposed related to the utility. And our lack of past community solar legislation in Pennsylvania. So because of that, we have to look for one single off-taker that is within a 2-mile radius that can use all or a majority of the energy. We are still seeking that, with the caveat being that we are hopeful that by the time we get to that point, so by the time that the remediation project is almost completed, there might be a different legislative landscape at that time, and we might be able to hopefully reconsider community solar or some other opportunities. So, depending on who you talk to, some people are more hopeful than others around the potential for that. But from our perspective, we are trying to track down both pathways and understand, what it could mean to go either route. Again, like I mentioned, we're working closely with the PA Solar Center, and we are actually working with them to actually draft an RFP a little bit earlier so that we could be engaging the contractors for their remediation while also engaging the solar developer. And they actually recommended against that. They recommended waiting until we're further along the remediation process to see where we're at from a political context, and because that could very heavily affect the RFP that we put out. I know that's not a direct answer to your question, but hopefully that covers some of the conversations there. We're hopeful that community solar legislation will pass. What we've looked at in the past is like, how many houses could this, provide energy for in a year? Obviously, it's very dependent on multiple factors like cloud cover, house size, and all that. I think the general metric we've seen is 175 houses per year. So again, as far as we know, this would be the largest solar development in the city of Pittsburgh if it is completed. So it would be, a large factor contributing to the city's planning goals and other sustainability-related plans. It would really be a landmark urban solar development. And for folks who are kind of in the sustainability or urban energy systems scene, the brownfields to solar or brownfields, as they call it, are a really hot topic in our population just because of the vast amount of brownfield land we have that is still sitting undeveloped because of you know, post-industrialization and, you know, so solar is seen as really an amazing opportunity to redevelop some of that land that has been left underutilized. And so this is a great example of that. You know, we're hoping to lay the groundwork so that this can really be a case study that is replicated at a larger scale. And yeah, so that's part of, you know, the goal for this project. A little bit more about the solar that we're excited about and things that we're kind of pursuing longer term is, you know, when we engage with solar developer, we're really going to want to see that, you know, the ground cover that's around the solar is native plantings. So what you'll see now on the site, because the heavy metal soil is very difficult for plants to grow in now, it's a lot of like weed trees and invasive species. And so part of the goals of this project is that, you know, all of that acreage that currently is not really adding to the biodiversity of the landscape will be improved in those ways and really improve, you know, all the biodiversity of the site and make it a better habitat for some of the flora and fauna in the area. So that's another goal of the project. We have lots of other ideas around the later development of the solar and the trail system. But because that's so far out, I think we better stop it here and yeah, focus on the remediation.
Where can we find the approved?
Reach out to me, I can give you my card, and we can share that with you. I need you to submit a no request. Okay. Any other final questions?
Just touch on I know a couple of earlier discussions where you were able to do something. Prepare the city to develop part of the trails, or like walk trails, whatever, you know, in the other areas that are used. You have an idea of like how to develop it or pass it off to the city to provide that.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think as far as we've gotten to date is that we're going to make use of all the access roads that this contractor who is doing our remediation is going to develop. So those access roads, we envision that post-construction, and once the land is turned over, those will turn into part of the trail network. So that is the portion that the URA is actively going to be pursuing now, and it's actually going to be the very first thing we do on this site, is to create the access roads. So yeah, that is a portion of the site that the trail network that the URA will definitely be pursuing. And, you know, part of the goals of these access roads, as I know you and I have talked about extensively, is safety for the site. So those back trails are very difficult for medical services vehicles to get to. And so part of the goals of these access roads are to not only manage the construction effort, but also in the longer term, make it possible for emergency vehicles to get into those trails at the back of the site. That's a portion that we're definitely doing now. I can tell you that the solar developer won't be managing any of the trail construction because those are just two completely different wheelhouses. We wouldn't want trail contractors to do solar and we want solar contractors to do trails. So in our mind, those are two completely different areas. And I think at this point, you know, the URA is still working to kind of collaborate with the city to understand what that relationship is going to look like. I will say that the more money that we, you know, are able to collect from this grant, the less TIF that we're going to continue to use, and the more possibility there will be funds left over to potentially help in this effort. But none of that is confirmed at this time, and we'll definitely need to have more collaboration. Coordination with the city to understand exactly how that dynamic will work out in terms of management of the trail effort.
And I know we're not talking about this point,
Yeah, this was one of the things that I'm excited about that I wasn't going to get into. I'm happy to share since you asked. So we actually had a grad student who was really interested in the project, approached me maybe a year ago. When we had a meeting at Three Rivers Outdoors for folks who were at that meeting. And she was really interested in something I said about potentially creating a trail system network around the actual panels themselves. So essentially, the panels will be the area that the panels are, so these two flat clear areas, right? Those will be fenced off, so there will be no like publicly accessible space within the area where the panels are. And the goal that we were talking about at that meeting that she got excited about was to create a trail that actually goes all the way around the panels on that fence line and really create like an object of interest of the solar panels. And so to create little kind of like indents into the area of the solar panel that would have educational placards that would talk about the construction of the solar panel, the energy that it provides, and really be like an educational feature so that, this isn't just an eyesore, but it's actually an amenity at the park that people can come and do the walk around solar panels and really learn about solar energy and how, it adds to the energy systems and parts of what really makes our city more green and really goes back to those air quality issues that really started this whole conversation. So yeah, that's part of the goal for the trails. And we actually completed that project, so we've got all of the information to pull together. And yeah, I think we've got some grants in mind when the time comes that we could reach out to help us fundraise for some of that signage. But again, these are kind of like pieces down the line at this point, years down the line. But there's all sorts of things like this to get excited about. Another one that I personally get excited about is workforce opportunity around this. So do we have solar panels that are actually meant to be installed, taken apart, or reinstalled, so that we can get folks out to the site and learn about how to install solar panels. So that's another piece that I think could be a really cool addition to make this extend past just the realities of the energy that it produces, but to have other benefits to the public. That's a good question. I assume it will be like most solar developers have like a full kind of security plan. And so my assumption is that there would be lights, but again, we won't know that for sure until we engage the solar developer. But I imagine, like, again, what we hear from you all at these meetings in terms of your concerns, like, we can add to the list of like what we're going to grade these proposals on. So safety, to your point, well, I'm sure you want them. Like, how is the site going to be safe? How are we going to keep folks off of it? What is your plan around that? So yeah, by the time comes and we start getting engagement around that solar development, we'll bring those questions back at that time and we can. Yeah, that's a good point. There are pros and cons of options, right? Safety versus light pollution. And so where we intend that interconnection infrastructure to go is going to be up towards Goodman. Right where that, like basically extending on Goodman into the site. There's a right of way for Duquesne Lane right now. We're going to be able to tap right into the grid via that site. And we intend that the interconnection facility will be somewhere around here. So it falls, if what he's describing is how it plays out, then that would be pretty far off of the street road. Oh, yeah, so public comment is open until the 26th. So you'll have more time to review this, grant application. I know you're all gonna fall asleep to it tonight. But feel free to peruse a little bit longer, don't feel pressured to put all your public comment in right now. Take your time with it up until the 26th, we'll be collecting comment. And again, the intention is to put all your public comment in our grant application. And yeah, we'll wish us all luck. We're excited about it. I think we pulled a good application together, and we do have some technical assistance from WVU, who's going to also be reviewing our proposal prior to our ultimate submission to provide some additional guidance for us. So we are feeling pretty confident that it's going to be competitive. With that, I just want to say thank you all so much for coming out tonight. It's great to see some families. We will be back, so you'll see us again before May 2nd.